Hi everybody, welcome back. Really excited for this one. I've got my friend Gordon Eddy over at Ribbon. We've already had a prep call on this and we got quite into some nostalgia around me deploying various Ribbon boxes. But we're talking about a new generation here. But why don't we start, Gordon, would you just like to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of context about your role?
Sure, absolutely. And thanks again for having me join the podcast today. I really appreciate it. Hi, folks. My name is Gordon Eddy. I work at Ribbon Communications. I run product management for Ribbon's SBC Edge portfolio. I cover enterprise strategy. I also dabble in UC business partnerships. So I work with a lot of our UC partners as we develop our products and solutions. And I've been with the Ribbon company for over 10 years, started out with Sonus, and then as it evolved into Ribbon. And I work out of our Westford, Massachusetts office in the United States.
Awesome. Thanks, Gordon. So there's lots we could talk about, but I know we want to zero in on the kind of new Edge 8000 portfolio. So that's relatively new hardware. Give us a bit of context about that portfolio, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, this is a new solution for us. It's evolved out of the drive for cloud communications and increased bandwidth. Obviously, there's still a need for secure communications. That's our bread and butter. And then also for legacy migrations, to support the migration and the use of older assets for a period of time. So be able to integrate with those legacy systems, PBXs, or phones. So that's the drivers, the edge challenges I think our customers are facing. And so we developed this platform to support those different needs. So it's actually 3 products in one. So it's got built-in routing capability, a 10 gig router. It's got gateway capability, gateway functionality to connect to those legacy devices, and also an SBC. So we have a VNF architecture within the platform. And the first application is our SWe Edge SBC that hopefully a lot of folks are familiar with.
Yeah, so obviously that's part of why we're talking about it on the pod is it's certified for Microsoft Teams, also the other UC platforms as well. So you've got the certifications for all the major ones. Explain that SWe Lite thing for anybody who doesn't know. Obviously, a lot of people will know that, but how these are physical boxes, but they're running the SWe Lites?
So let me clarify that a little bit. We changed that name a couple of years ago to SWe Edge.
Really I'm behind the times, sorry.
To better exemplify what it is and what it does as an SBC on the edge, it's a software-based solution. So we can run it, and we typically sell it to deploy on a virtual machine. So different hypervisors, we can deploy that in customers' environments. We can also deploy it in public cloud. In this case, we validated it for our Edge 8000 platform, which is, as you said, a hardware-based appliance. It's an appliance that gets deployed on-prem as CPE. One of the unique parts of its architecture is implementing the SWe Edge as a VNF. And actually, the platform is open to adding other VNFs down the road. So we could add other applications to it.
Cool. Just define VNF for us, for those that don't know.
Virtual network function. And if you think about other things like a firewall or other things, that's something else we could add to the platform. And just a comment, you mentioned Teams and other UC solutions. So the SWe Edge has been validated with Teams for direct routing with Cisco Webex, Zoom, as well as Google SipLink. So we validated that platform. So we benefit from that validation work that we've done. It can utilize that, again, within the Edge 8000 platform.
And for users, I guess there's a benefit if they're used to the SWe Edge and that interface and approach in virtual, they get the same type of approach, but now they can deploy it on a dedicated physical box with all the ports and physicality.
Exactly. We added HA capability to the SWe Edge, so we'll be able to leverage that capability, HA being high availability, be able to leverage that with that platform as well. And then obviously with the other functions on it, gateway and routing, a multi-service platform for an enterprise edge, depending on what the needs are. So voice as well as data support.
Awesome. And you've got the 8100 and the 8300. What's the difference between those two models?
Yeah, so a single hardware-based platform. The 8100 supports the routing functionality as well as can embed the SWe Edge. And the 8300 has the gateway capability with both analog and PRI or T1E1 interfaces on it. So if you wanted a stream down routing platform, 8100 probably is the right fit. You need some voice capability with the SBC that it can be augmented or added to that platform. The 8300, you get into a more multifunctional platform where, as I mentioned before, legacy interface interconnect, need for FXS or to connect to different analog lines, or if you still have PRI and you need that capability for either T1 or E1, The platform supports that on the 8300.
So, I mean, that immediately in my head makes me contrast it to the kind of UX, the 1K, 2Ks. Like I deployed quite a few of those back in the day when I did real deployments. They were good boxes. How does it compare and contrast? I guess that's an older platform now, being that I had hands on it with it like literally 5, 6, 7 years ago. I think it started.
Yeah, it's been a very successful platform. There's a lot of longevity with the platform. There's the 1000, the SBC 1000 version, and the 2000, 1000 lower capacity, 2000 higher capacity, both on gateway interfaces as well as sessions. Really what we're doing with the 8000 is we're extending that product line. So we've added the routing capabilities. That's obviously one key thing that differentiates it. Higher session count than the 2000, higher CPS as well. I mentioned the HA capability that we can leverage now from the SWe Edge. So there's some unique and different capabilities that we've added to extend the product line. Those products are still being sold and being deployed. They've been hardened and certified with a lot of our customers, especially large service provider customers who go through rigorous certification. So those platforms still certainly have their place. The 8000 is one that kind of extends that product line and augments it with some additional functionality depending on what the customer's use cases are.
Makes sense. So it's interesting that you've invested in a new hardware platform. You talked about T1E1s. It feels like the industry noise is all cloud, all virtual. What was the impetus to invest in new modern hardware?
I think a couple things. One is certainly that we still see a need, especially in different geographies around the globe, where there's a need for physical appliances, but also for connections to legacy platforms. I mentioned PBXs, different types of phones, elevator phones, fax machines, things like that, where you still need an analog line or you still need that T1 or E1 connection very local at the enterprise premise. So we saw that there's definitely a need for this type of platform. And as you look at what we've developed, there's a couple of key things. The routing is one, so you've got your data and voice in a single platform. It's a CPE device. It's one where we could add other virtual network functions to it. So it's got some extendability, if you will, depending on what the customer's needs are. So we saw it as an area that needed a platform or some new focus, and that's why we developed it.
That's interesting. That seems to be what I hear when I talk to carriers as well. Obviously, there's things like Operator Connect and equivalent programs in Teams land where it's all cloud to cloud. But some of those operators now are offering local SBCs, managed SBC for those customers because they're bringing that telco skill out of their on-site, but they still need either, like you say, PBX interop, or even if they're terminating SIP for regulatory reasons, they might need to terminate it locally, have local box. And you mentioned high availability on site as well. That's another one that comes up from time to time. Are you seeing the same thing? Is it end customer buying them and managing them? Is it telcos or is it a bit of both?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. You brought up a great point too about the evolution to cloud. And certainly we see that as well and have solutions that can support cloud-based private cloud deployment or a public cloud deployment with our software-based solutions. But there's still that connection, say the last mile, maybe last 100 feet, if you will, where there's a connection that's needed. But ultimately that might be ending up connecting out to a cloud-based platform for sure. And so relative to who's doing this, certainly there's service providers out there that are offering these solutions to customers, meaning managed services with on-prem equipment. That's certainly a need. And then there's also, we still see customers buying them outright as well, and not just having services, but there's still a space, if you will, for purchasing of the equipment by the end enterprise.
And what's the manageability story here? So you've got the SWe Edge, you've got the box as well. How does that play into the Ribbon management approach?
Great question. So there's certainly a need for that, especially when you talk about a multi-site deployment or multi-geography deployment. The Edge 8000 is going to be supported under our Ribbon management platform ramp. So it fits under that architecture like we do with other solutions. So it can be managed from that platform. So they can have a central management platform for those devices as well as other Ribbon devices that they have.
Nice. And is that part of a story? So if I had SWe running in cloud virtual and I had the SWe Edge running, can that all be part of the same kind of management architecture?
Yeah, it can be supported under the same management system, and we could have the flexibility of whether it's an appliance and or, if you will, a cloud-based SBC or our policy management system or our analytics platform can be managed under a single RAM.
That's interesting. And you alluded to it at the start of the conversation, but have you been thinking about other appliances you can potentially run on these boxes? What kind of conversations are being had there?
Definitely open to potential different partnerships depending on what customers' needs are and the drive are. I mentioned firewall seems like a logical device to put in there, but certainly in the area of security, there may be other modules or other applications that might be a good fit for that.
Awesome. So let's see if I've got the summary right and you can correct me. So you've got the 81,000 is more the kind of IP and routing, and that could run the SWe Edge for a SIP trunk potentially. But when you're in the situation where you still need those physical voice, the T1E ones, you can run analog on these boxes as well, can't you? So you either need classic PSTN connectivity, or you need some kind of resilient scenario where you want to run phone, or you want to physically connect to old school PBXs. That's where you're in the 8300. Is that right?
Yeah, 8100, as you said, IP focused with 10 gig router capability and the virtual SBC. And then the 8300 augments that with the gateway capability and the T1E1 and TDM and analog interfaces.
Awesome. If people want to find out more about these boxes, either they're enterprise and they're thinking about rolling them out for themselves, or they're working potentially with telco partners, what's the best next step to find out more?
Certainly, if they have a familiarity and already working with Ribbon, to reach out to the Ribbon sales team. They're well versed in the platform. Our website is obviously loaded with information on the platform, data sheets, the background, some of the use cases. So that's another great place for folks to go to get information.
Gordon, thanks for taking the time to explain that to us. Really interesting new box. It's nice to see, I think, from a personal point of view, new investment in hardware, because I'm certainly seeing there are certain countries where cloud and virtual is dead easy and you can flick it on, but there's still a lot of the world where you're going to need these physical boxes to interface with existing PBX, existing PSTN. That's not going away in the next few years, I don't think, for many customers. So it's nice to have
despite the thoughts or the overtures that it would, it just takes time. It's like the adoption of voice over IP, it takes time.
Exactly. I mean, everything takes time, and then telco takes even longer. Is usually the thing. So yeah, it's nice to know that if you're investing now, you're investing in a box that's got that longevity.
Spot on. And thanks for that. It's good insight.
Great, cool. If people want to find out more, feel free to ask questions in the comments or hit the Ribbon website and you'll find all the documentations there. Thanks a lot, Gordon.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Tom. Appreciate the time.